morning, everyone. Welcome to Creating 2D Games with GameMaker. This is the Advanced Techniques session. I'm Natalie.
And my name is Daniel. I'm a developer evangelist in Southern California. I've been doing game development for about 2 years now. Before that, I was a traditional, run-of-the-mill enterprise developer before joining Microsoft. But about 2 years ago, I decided, hey, it'd be really fun to build a game. And so I hunkered down and learned how to develop games. Built a game called Dave in the Cave. It's 20 levels of cave fun. And it's on all 3 platforms, so whether you have a Windows 8 phone or whether you have an iPhone or an Android, you can get it on any of those. And I had a ton of fun doing it, and want to share some of that fun with you today.
Cool. I'm Natalie Golivornis, also a technical evangelist, and I live in Dallas, Texas. So like Daniel, I work with students, startups, and game developers. So I've been at Microsoft for about 2 years now, also with a focus on game dev. So before Microsoft, I did have experience working at some other game companies, but I wouldn't have really considered myself a developer. But recently at Microsoft, I published my first game called Mysterious Mushrooms, so you can check that out.
It's very mysterious?
Also, yes, very mysterious.
And lots of mushrooms.
Mm-hmm,
nice, nice. So we're glad you can join us today. You're watching this on MVA, and I think it's really important to actually join the MVA community. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. You can get points. There's leaderboards. So while you're doing this and while you're checking this out, make sure you check out the MVA community and sign up. You can see the codes on screen for that. Remember that it expires 4/19/2015, so you want to make sure you do that. Some of the resources that you'll need for today, GameMaker Studio, of course, there's a free edition, and I think everything that we're showing you today you can do in that. We're going to be working with Spine today. So previously we created characters using Inkscape, which is a great open source program to create 2D animations and stuff, but today we're going to take those sprites that we created and work them in Spine. And so go ahead and download Spine. And if you're just jumping into this session today and haven't seen our previous GameMaker session that we recorded a while back, go ahead and check out that link that you see there, aka.msgmmva1, and you can see the previous one we did, which was a little more basic GameMaker stuff. You want to share the agenda of what we're doing today?
Yeah, we've got some fun things planned today. We're going to start doing scripting your game using the GameMaker language, and then we'll do animation using Bones and Spine. After that, we'll look at advertising analytics for your game, so how you can get some revenue. Making
money and find out how people are using it.
All that really awesome stuff, and how you can look at all the revenue you're getting from that. Then we'll look at optimizing for Windows 8, so touchscreen controls and saving data, and the Windows Store as well. So we'll take little breaks in between each of these things, about 10 minutes here and there. So.
Cool, cool. So let's jump right into the first module. So in this module, it's called Scripting Your Game using GameMaker language. And just to preface it, the goal of this section is not really to teach you GameMaker language in 20 minutes. That would be like trying to teach you C# or JavaScript in a 20-minute session. But it's more to get you situated with how it works in GameMaker, give you some pointers, give you some places to start. GameMaker actually has a nice tiered way of using GML language. You can use it as just little pieces in your game, or you can script your whole game in it. So that's our goal in this section, to give you a taste of what the GameMaker language is about.
You don't need any programming experience, right?
That's a good question, whether you need programming experience or not. I would say if you have absolutely zero programming experience, I would use the drag and drop. GameMaker is great for that. Drag and drop still has some of the constructs of how programming works with the loops and the variables and stuff. If you have zero programming experience, the GML part of it might be a little tough if you're starting from absolute scratch.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so to kind of bring you into where we were, so the first section, modules that we did a while back, and again, you can see the link to it. We walked through some of the basics, how the IDE works, how sprites work in it, how objects work in it. We modified a few rooms, and so we kind of dove around and got you used to the IDE. So again, if this is your first time in GameMaker, go check that out, because we're not going to go back. In today's sessions, we're going to dive right in. And so in this one, we're going to talk about learning to use GML and variables in GameMaker. And then after that, we're going to jump into state machines. And so we want to start with learning GML. So I already have the GameMaker open. So the interesting thing about GameMaker language is Mark Overmars, who created GameMaker a long time ago to work with his students, so his students were able to build games easily. Originally had it as drag and drop, and then he added GML as an afterthought, the GameMaker language as an afterthought, to do some tiny advanced stuff. But GML is actually taken over. One of the things you'll notice if you go to the forums, if you're looking at getting help in the forums, is most people out there are doing GameMaker language, so they will be able to help you with GameMaker language. There'll be a little less help if you're just doing pure drag and drop, but there's a lot of good stuff out there. Let me show you a game to start. Let me see which one I have open. Let's go to this one. I'm just going to run it so you can see, when I'm showing you code, it's not as dynamic, so you can see when I'm doing stuff, what's happening. So you can see I have a little character, goes left and right, goes up and down, he can jump. There's platforms here.
I like that little tree climbs up.
Yeah. I like the little rope. Actually, I like the little skeletons when you crush their head. I mean, we could just do this for 25 minutes if you want, see how good I am. But that's the game that we're looking at. So when we're looking at code, it's something tangible. It's something, and it has 3 levels. But let's go ahead and open a version of that, because I want to compare the two. This is almost this. This is the beginning of this, and I'll show you the room. It's kind of the beginner stages of that game. And the reason I want to show you this in today's session is kind of do a comparison. You'll see me do this a couple times as we're going through it today. If we look in the room itself, you'll see that I have a little guy in there, and let's do Alt-1. Go down to the bottom here. You'll see that in this room I have a object player drag and drop. Now that's because this individual player, this object over here, my main guy in the game, has all his actions, all his events, everything was done by dragging and dropping. So if I look at the create event, which is what happens when this guy is instantiated, again, even if you're doing drag and drop, the beauty of this is you're learning programming stuff. You're learning instantiation, you're learning variables, you're learning width, you're learning a lot of stuff. So you can see that I'm creating variables over here on the side to set image speed, to set image index, set as health to 100. Over here in the step, I'm using an if statement, so I'm checking to see if position is collision free, etc. When I go left, I'm going to jump left, etc. But if I open up the player drag and drop, you'll see a couple things. Oh, sorry, wrong player. If I open up the player that has the GML, you'll notice that I still have all the events over here. And this is a really interesting thing. This is what I meant by tiering in GameMaker. You can learn the code very slowly in GameMaker. You can pattern how you do it in drag and drop and just do little pieces of code. You'll notice over here on the right-hand side when we have controls, in the drag and drop you saw the move controls and jumping controls, the sound controls, room controls, but in the control tab itself, there's 2 different things under code. One of them is going to execute a piece of code, and one of them is going to execute a script. And if I drag that on there, you'll see that it allows me to call a script. Now these are scripts that you'll find over here in your scripts folder. So you can take a piece of code that someone else has written or a script that someone else has written that will enhance your game and make it that much cooler. So this is like the baby step to writing code, where you can actually call a script, but you can still tell it's still kind of drag and drop. You have to know a little bit of scripting because you need to know the arguments that are in that script and what to call, but it allows you to kind of take that baby step. The next thing, though, is just execute a piece of code. So if I click on here, This guy isn't that complex, but you can see just like the drag and drop, I'm setting image speed, I'm setting image index, and the speed is how fast the animation in the object is going. The index is what index to start it on. So if the animation is made up of 4 or 5 different things, which one do you want to start on? 0 will be the first. And you can choose that to be whether he's standing straight or his legs up in the air. You decide, obviously depending on the character. But you can see I can write code to write these variables in here. So not much different between the two yet. Again, you can look at the step event. Now the step event, if you haven't done a game before, the step event is your game loop. This is going to run 30 to 60 times a second. So this one's checking to see, basically if I'm in the air, it's checking to see if place is free, and it's checking my x coordinate and my y coordinate are right under me, and see if there's anything under me. If there's not, it's going to set gravity to 0.5 and it's going to drop. Again, in this section, we're not going to be talking about every little piece. How does gravity work? How does place free work? One of the cool things, though, is like many other programs, you can look at pieces of code that are color-coded. So these things are code that is, I'm sorry, the yellow is code that is part of the GameMaker language. This red here is code that is reserved words. Things like gravity and stuff are reserved words, so they're colored differently. But if I want to know how this works, I can just hit F1 to go to the help, or if I hit F12, it'll actually take me right to that one, and so I can look, I can see an example. More usually there's a little more explanation here than this one, but this one's pretty simple. If the place I'm looking at is free, then I want to do something, and you can do that with any code that you find in there. Okay, let me jump into a little bit more complex. So the stepping stones are just calling a script. You can write GML just calling a script. The next one is, you'll notice that I have things here for going left, going right, or going up. And I have script in there, and it's a very simple script. If place is free, set my V speed, I want to move to the right or the left, etc. And so that's the second step. You're still kind of compartmentalizing them by doing them in events. You're just writing code for them. You're not getting much benefit doing it this way because the benefit you're going to get is it's a little easier to read and write code than it is if you have a ton of drag and drop things in here. But if we take it one step further,
you can also mix the two, right? You could do some things drag and drop and some of it with the GML, right?
You absolutely can. And actually, when I first wrote Dave in the Cave, I did it originally in drag and drop. As it got more and more complex, the drag and drop functions got more complex. And actually, I'll show you that really quickly. This guy's so simple that I can see everything that's going on here. But a complex game like Dave in the Cave, if I did it all in drag and drop, this keeps going down and down and down and down.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep organized, and it's hard to really remember what's going on, and it's hard to jump to a certain place in your code, because I can search through scripts, but I can't search through drag and drop. So those are some of the trade-offs that you're going to do. But on the flip side of that, there's not much you cannot do in drag and drop that you can do in GML, because the drag and drop actually, at the end of the day, spits out GML to run the code. So it's essentially the same under the covers.
So you can get by with drag and drop. It'll just be a bit more tedious.
Absolutely. And there's optimizations you can do. And actually, let me show you a little bit of Dave in the Cave. So you saw the step event for that other game. If we look at the step event for my game, you can tell, and I'll just page through here, there's a lot more complexity. What's going on every 30 times a second. There's, 200 and 300 lines of code in here. And if we just kind of look at what's going on, I'm doing things like I have a joystick. And let me, actually, I think I can show you what that is. And we're going to talk about touchscreen controls later
cool.
today. But I'll show you, just so you can connect what I'm showing you in code to the game itself. We'll go ahead and run this quickly. If it cooperates with the not responding and comes up quickly.
There it is.
So I split my screen in two, so you can see I have, wherever I touch on this side, there's a joystick control, up, down, left, right. And on this side, actually, if I would touch it, it makes them jump. I've also been able to, I can use keys as well. And I think I use the space bar for this. So the same code works whether I'm using a keyboard or not. But I wanted to show you that to show you the...
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, to show you what code we're actually looking at. And I think it minimized down here. There we go. And so right here, I'm checking an object that's outside of here. You know, things you can't do in just drag and drop. This is a object joystick. And that's the joystick is sending me back which direction I'm pointing. And depending on which way I drag it, it's going to tell me either left, right, up, or down. And from that, I'm just doing a simple switch statement or a case statement that you would have in VB to whatever type of programming environment you're used to. And in the case statement, I'm doing simple stuff like I'm checking if there's a ladder. And if there's not a ladder, I'm not doing anything. If there is a ladder, I'm checking to see if it's a rope type ladder or a ladder type ladder in my game. Obviously, setting different speeds. You notice here, and this is something really, really important. You notice right here I have D-state ladder rope, or D-state ladder. I have a bunch of other states in here, and we'll talk about state machines later. D-state jump. You'll notice if you look at my code, and some of it's maybe not the best. You're always worried about showing your own code, right? Because there comes a point where you just need to get stuff done. But coding in GML, you want to make sure that you're very, very particular on your naming standards. You'll notice a lot of developers or code that you get maybe on forums have a lot of X's and Y's and J's and zeros and ones to stand for stuff. And in a very small game, you can get away with that. But if this is state is equal to 3, or state is equal to 16, or whatever, or X is equal to 16, it gets to be really, really messy code. So one of the things you want to make sure you do is be very clean in your writing. And we can go through this more and more, but you can see how complex this can get going through here.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and close this. But again, if you're used to C# or JavaScript, you'll be very comfortable in GML. Oh, you can get, oh, actually that's one thing I wanted to show you. I think I have one in here. Do a Control F. Show debug message. So this is a really important thing. One of the things in GameMaker that was a bit challenging to me and maybe challenging to C# developers out there if you're a C# developer is there's no try-catch. So there's no global catching system that you may be used to. And so you're going to have to spend a lot of time doing the old ASP.NET response.write type of coding. So you'll see that I have a show debug message, and here I'm passing it, different stuff. This is whether it's on a ladder, whether it's not, etc. And some of this I uncommented out, and I actually removed in the main game. And when you do that, it's going to show in this tiny window here. Let's see if we have any. So these are some debug stuff, the object stuff that you see down here. Let me do Control 4 so you guys can see this a bit better. This is not going to mean much to you, but in the compile window down here, not only will it do the compile stuff, but it's also going to show you any debug messages that you want to send up here. I don't see any at the bottom here, but that's where it would show off. So that's something you want to make sure that you understand and you use regularly, because you're not going to be able to catch everything. So I think for GML, the next thing I actually wanted to show you is to talk about variables. And there's 3 different types of variables. There's the instance type variables, and let me actually pop something up here. So any variables that I just implicitly declare in here will belong to this instance. So I only have one player at a time. So there's only going to be one instance, but I might have more than one monster at a time. And so an instance variable will be part of that instance. Now, if I wanted it to be taken away as soon as it's used, I can make it a local one. And I don't need it for this, but if I put a var in front of it, it makes it a local variable. And the local variable allows you to get rid of it as soon as you're done with it. Obviously, the cleaner your code, the better. The better it will run if you don't have things you're not using in memory. And then finally, we have a global variable. So a global variable can get dangerous. Global variables in JavaScript, the same way. If you have too many globals, it can get really, really messy. But sometimes you need to, everywhere in your game, see when things are going on. And so you can set a global variable. And quite easily, all you do to set that is do global dot whatever you want to create the variable name is. And it allows you to access it from anywhere in the code. And then the final thing, kind of hidden. Nope, I don't want to save that. We're going to close this. And at the bottom of our tree here, we have what we call macros. Now I'll go ahead and open that up. And this is where I'm able to create constants. So dstate stand is always equal to 0, dstate walk is always equal to 1, dstate climb is always equal to 4. You can see I have constants for a ton of stuff. Max H speed, max fall speed, skid speed. And this does two things. One, it creates very clear code. So as I showed you in the code, you can very clearly see that I was looking to see if I was on a ladder, and if I was, I set my state equal to, on a ladder. It also allows you to write code that's not brittle, and what I mean by that is you see I have max horizontal speed set to 8. Well, if I'm setting the max speed in my code a bunch of times to 8, and then somewhere along the line I decided 9 was better, I have to find all those different places in the code to change it. Where with my game, if I wanted to globally change the max speed to 9, I change it in one place, and I'm done. And so those are macros, and if you are a programmer, these are like using constants. So those are some things that hopefully can get you started using this. Now, one of the things I mentioned in the last section was that you saw I had states in there. I had walking state and other state. And even though I called it state, they weren't really state machines. And so I want to quickly cover what state machines and how they help you here in GameMaker. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to open up a really cool game. Some of you might know this, some of you might not. Let's open this one.
I wonder if I've seen this.
Yeah, we will see.
Did you make
Actually,
this one too?
I did not make this one. This is a remake of a classic game. So Zool is an old-time classic game, and Zool just is in Candyland, and he has to kill people and grab stuff, and you can see he dies. The reason I have this is there's a book out, GameMaker Companion. There's two really good ones, GameMaker Apprentice and GameMaker Companion. One of them is written by Mark Overmars, who created GameMaker, and that's one of the games in it. And inside of it, they actually I have a GML version, which is really cool to compare as well, since we're talking about drag and drop versus GML. So if you really want to see how to, because this is a very complex game, here's a great example. In Object Zool, in his draw event, you can see this just starts to get crazy and farther and farther and farther down. And so one of the things that a lot of game developers do, I actually decided against it. I started with that in Dave and then went away from it, is what's called a state machine. So you can see that there's 5 different Zools. So there's an object Zool, and if you're used to programming, this is like the parent object. So all the objects above him, so if you look at object Zool land, his parent is Object Zool, and what that means is everything that happens in that base one will happen in him. But he's the one that's on land, so all the code that I have to have in here has to deal with when he's on land, when he's walking, when he's right, when he's left, when he's on a ledge, when he's on a ramp. Now the one in the air, again, gets his parent from Object Zool, so all that has, but he's only concerned with when he's in the air. So you can see we're setting gravity, we're determining when we're actually hitting something, hitting a ledge or going through a ledge. And again, we have one for when he's on a wall and when he's on ice. So that's a state machine, and state machines allow you to, another programming thing, separate concerns. So it allows you to compartmentalize pieces of your code in a way that doesn't get unwieldy and doesn't get crazy where you can't find stuff. State machines allow you to switch from state to state and keep what has to do with that state in one nice little box. It also gives you the ability to, like I said, get inheritance in a way by having a parent object like Object Zool.
Yeah, it sounds like it would help keep things clear for sure.
It is, and it does. When I was working with Dave in the Cave, I originally started with state machines, and I went away from it because you have to balance the complexity with the jumping back and forth and managing the different states. And so I ultimately decided to have one, as you saw, one object character instead of different states, and I decided to set states using constants. But either way, mine's kind of a cheating state machine, I guess you can say, but either way it allowed me to decide what to do with the character depending on what state he was. So that is all we had for this module. Hopefully it gave you a good indication of how to use GML, where to start, have the different baby steps of how to get there, and actually how to use state machines and utilize variables. Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll see you back here for the next module.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Advanced Techniques for GameMaker. This is Module 2, and we're going to be doing animation using Spine. I'm Natalie. This is Daniel.
And I'm Daniel Egan. This should be a pretty fun session today. The agenda for this module is first an introduction to Spine. You might have seen the module title and said, what are we doing here? And so I'm going to introduce you to Spine, kind of what it does. And we're going to then take Spine and create some animations using it. We're going to import the images, we're going to connect the bones, we're going to animate the bones. And again, at the top of this module, or this collection of modules, we talked about the fact that I'm a developer. And just like when we drew stuff in Inkscape in the previous ones, I'm attacking this from a developer's point of view, so not from an artist, not from an animator's point of view. It's a very powerful tool, but I'm going to show you how you can simply use it. So if you want to play along, if you want to use this after we show it to you, you'll want to go to esotericsoftware.com. And so let's go ahead and introduce Spine to you. And I'm going to do that by first going to their Kickstarter page. Because actually I think this is cool. This is how I came to find Spine itself. And Spine was a Kickstarter. A couple guys who were game devs wanted to write a tool that was easy to use and that allowed them to animate characters using a bone and skeletal structure. And you can tell at first they were looking for $12,000. And they made much more than $12,000. Yeah, so it was very popular. If you scroll down, and we won't, but you can see their stretch goals and what they wanted to add as they went along, as they kept surpassing what people wanted. Some of the cool things like generic JavaScript or generic C++. They have add-ins for C# and onion skinning, and they just kept going, bounding boxes, etc. They were actually so successful they didn't have to work, and they did this full time. They actually took a second Kickstarter out, and again went above their 20,000 goal. And this was to add additional features to it, and things that people were really requesting and really needing. So this is a community type of tool. Although, you will have to pay for it. So I really like this tool. Usually I like showing free tools like Inkscape, like Audacity, tools that are open source and free. But these guys are real good community guys. And if we look at this, everything I'm doing today, you'll actually be able to do with the trial. You just won't be able to put it anywhere. You won't be able to export it. You can see that, you know, the prices for the Essential and the Professional if you want to do that. But, you know, I guess it's a small price to pay. At least I feel it's a small price to pay if you really start utilizing this and you're really building a game. The amount of time it saved me when I was building Dave in the Cave I couldn't even describe how much money and time it saved me in creating my characters. Actually, I take that back. I can describe that. So let me show you. So here's Dave in Dave in the Cave, and we've seen this before, but this is his walk cycle. So once you actually sit and create the character, then you need to animate them. And traditional animation either does a sprite sheet where they're all crammed together, where you have an artist and the same character, it's his running and his jumping and his falling and his kicking and whatever it is. You can have that, or you can have strips. So this is just a running strip. And when I had him running in the game, I had to, let me show you up here, I had to figure out, like I said, I'm a developer, I had to figure out how do you make a character look like he's running, right? So I just looked up run cycle, and this came up a million times, and I'm like, oh, okay, if I just make him do like that, he'll look like he's running. And that's great, and that's fantastic, and I have a running cycle, but then he had to jump. Then he had to fall. Then he had to roll. Then I had bats that had to flap their wings. I had spiders that needed to walk around. I had monsters that needed to clomp around. And so being able to finish a game on time using this technique, again, coming from a non-artist, started to seem insurmountable to me. So if we flip over to another one that we're going to look at, this is Little Man. This is the little guy I created. And you can see that we have Little Man in a strip as well. So I created a character that was pretty simplistic. You can see he doesn't have any arms or legs, but you can simulate arms or legs just from the movement of the hands and the movement of the feet, the movement of the sword. I could bob his head up and down. But still, creating a walk cycle or anything like this still takes a little time. Not as much as a complex character like Dave, but you can see that I've made different versions of him.
Yeah, even though his feet are just little shapes, they look like he's walking. It's really realistic.
Yeah, I love, and I personally, it's a taste thing too. I personally love these character types, just the round type of minimalistic. Yeah. You'll notice over here on the right-hand side, I have his pieces all spread apart. So that's him not connected, not moving, not anything else. But this is exactly what I need to actually use something like Spine, to animate him in a program like Spine. I need to break out the different things.
So you'd pull it apart first?
Yeah, I pull it apart first. So like any of these, I can just grab onto him and move his stuff around. I've placed it all together. So I just put it in a way that I can pull in and create different ones. So there's different ways to do this. I actually exported these individually. I can export it as a sheet I want and cut it apart, but I need to be able to have these separate so that I can animate them separately. So let's dive into Spine now. Let's close this down and bring up Spine. And let's maximize this so we have a lot of room here. So this is our working surface. And the first thing we need to do is we need to bring in the images. And so over on the right-hand side, you can see I have an images folder. If I do, let me pop over to the tree. So I'll be talking about it. Let me show you what that looks like. Alt-1. Because we'll be talking about different stuff so you can see it. You can see there's the skeleton itself, there's the root bone, all the other bones will attach to the root bone. You can see there's a draw order, so as I place stuff on here, I want some things in front of other things, and so I'm going to be messing with the draw order. Images, which is what we're going to go into now, is the images that I'm going to be using in this animation, and I'll share with you why that's important, that it's just pointing to a folder. It's really cool. Skins we will talk about in a little bit later, but you can see that's where it is. And then animations. Animations is where the completed animations that are created are going to be. I just wanted you to see the hierarchy, so when I'm clicking around in there, you can know what I'm talking about. So the first thing I need to do is tell it where the images are. And so if I click on images, I can click down here on the bottom here.
Does it matter what file type they are?
JPEGs, PNGs. You want something that's obviously going to be transparent, so a PNG is perfect for this type of stuff. And so if I click on this Browse folder, I can point to where they're at. And actually I have to look again. You can see I'm actually using the cubby version of it. Sorry, let me just make this easy. And then select that folder. And now you can see they're all in here in the Spine program itself. And the cool thing about this is that since it's pointing to a folder, if I wanted to change these, if I didn't like the image as is, I would be able to change the image. It'd still be pointing to this folder. So everything I build in Spine, the animations that I use in Spine, aren't going to be changed from it. Obviously you can tell I come from Chicago and I'm a Chicago Cubs fan. So I made this little cubby guy here. The first thing I want to do is get a full image guy here, and I'll show you why I do that. I'm just going to drag him on there, and I'm going to make this a little smaller here so he's not overtaking stuff. Actually, there's a couple different things you can do when you're working with images in here. You can see there's a rotate, a translate, and scale. Rotate was what I accidentally was doing at first when I was spinning him on this axis. The translate is just moving him on the X or the Y. And I just want to make sure he goes about there over the root bone. And then this guy right here is kind of just like a template. I want to, when I bring the other pieces on here, I want to know where to place them. Now this guy isn't all that complex. I could probably place the other images without having this guy in here, but when you have a more complex character like Dave, like some of the other things I'm going to show you, you want a template here. So I'm going to go ahead and mark him down in the right hand here as a background, so he won't be included in exports. When I'm exporting this, I don't want this image. And then I'm going to color him a little differently and make him a little bit transparent, so that when I'm working in here, I know that that's my template guy that I'm working with. Now what we can do, and this tool has a bunch of different ways that you can accomplish the same thing, and it's really whatever you're comfortable with when you're working in it. But I want to draw bones on him. And so I can click over here to create a bone. You have to know what bone to start with, and it's starting with the hip bone, which is already there, the root bone that you see up here. And so that's already highlighted. And I want to create a hip bone. And so I'm just going to actually click right there. Let's move it up so we can see a little bit more.
Should you always start with the hip bone?
Honestly, it depends on the character. I'll show you like a dragon and stuff later that doesn't have hips per se.
Yeah.
So it all depends on what you're trying to animate. And you want to connect bones. The whole point of this is being able to move an arm and have the lower arm and hand move as well. So I'm going to make sure that's selected. And then I'll do a bone for the body. Make sure the body bone is selected, and still is. And I want a bone for the upper arm. I want a bone for the lower arm and hand. I want to click here again to make sure that body bone is connected. And I'm going to do one for this side. And then do one here. And the interesting thing is you'll notice even in my character that has no arms, I can still make his hands move, and as you see when I move him in a second, move in a way that would be consistent with him having arms. His feet, I actually don't want to have, I'm going to put bones, but I'm just going to put little dots. So I think I need to click here and then put a bone here. Click
and
here
those lines won't show up later, right?
Yeah, because I don't have legs and he's too close, and the shoes, again, I chose a very simplistic one to do this quickly. I want the shoes to just move up and down. It's not going to have real leg motion.
Right.
And the last thing I need is the head. And again, now I have my bones all set in place. So now we want to actually place the images. And so if I click on head, I can do either click set parent bone here, or I can hit P on my keyboard and click on where I want it to go. Click OK. And you'll see that it doesn't place it exactly, so that's where the template comes in. I want to move it to where it needs to go. If I click on left foot, we will do P, and I'll try and do this quickly. And right foot, or left hand is the next one.
So you can place each of the different parts on top of the template then?
Correct. I'm connecting the images to the bones is what I'm actually doing.
Okay.
And then I place them over the template just because that's where I want them to physically be connected to the bone. Let's do the rest of these quickly. Left shoulder, set the parent bone right there. What happened? Let's do it again. Set parent. And I'm going to hide bones right now so that quits jumping on me. So I just clicked up here because I didn't want to see the bones because the tree kept jumping on me. So I'll do right foot. Click on that bone. We're almost done here. Right hand. Right shoulder. And then body. Now I need to do some adjustments here. To put them in the right place. And so you can see he's all set, but you haven't even seen the bones move yet. And so you notice there's a couple things that are wrong. This should be behind the head. And you can set that in draw order. So we open up draw order. You can see, I think I want right foot up on top. Oh, sorry. Right foot up on top, and then I want right hand, and then I want right shoulder, and then I want head and body, and I think everything else will be fine. So now you can see that they're in front of and behind this character. Now if I want to actually move and place them, here's where the cool part comes up. You'll notice that I can click on this and do rotate. And so now his whole body rotates, right? Because all those bones are connected.
Yeah.
If I do the same thing for
you can move each part now.
His arm, the whole thing's connected, right? So I can very easily put him in the poses I want. As a matter of fact, if I do two bones, if I do control and control on his shoulder, it actually moves in a way they both move, right? So it's a more realistic movement. And again, I can do this. These are just going to be separately moved back and forth, so we don't need to do it on that. So this is setting them up. Again, a very simplistic character, very simplistic bone structure, but this is the setup part of it. So you'll take your time, you'll set up all the bones, you'll create your structure, and then you want to animate. So animation is done by clicking, probably should show that, right up here in the left-hand corner. It says Setup or Animate, and it flips back and forth between the two. And we're going to open up this dope sheet, and we're going to make him a bit smaller so you can see what's going on here. And I'm going to do this quickly, because you'll get it very quickly. I actually want to do keyframes. So what I just did there is I grabbed all of the bones and then I want to set a keyframe. So what this is down here is this is where I change the bones or change the positions of the bones and move between them. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy this one, just click right here and hit Control-C, and I'm going to do a very rough one for you guys. Then I want to, on the timeline, I'm going to jump to 5 here, and I'll just start moving him, right? So again, I can move them around. I'm going to rotate most of them. So I'm going to rotate that, rotate that. We will move this one, move this one, and then I just grab them all again and click these keys so it's on the timeline. I'll move it again to 10. And then I'll do the same thing. Actually, let's choose the, I want to get the template out of there. We'll do that later. You can see the templates behind that. I can actually hide that, but we'll do that later. So I want to go to 10, and I want to move it a little bit more. And we'll rotate it. And we'll rotate it. And then we'll move his shoe again. And I'm not going to finish this for you because this could get a little tedious, but much less tedious than taking a character and moving him in something like Inkscape and changing him, rearranging him. The bone structure in here allows you to do stuff so incredibly fast. And the other thing it allows you to do is if you have an artist maybe doing your renderings, when you have to wait on them to do stuff to tweak it just a little, they have to retweak the whole thing. So I'm going to grab this pose by highlighting all the bones, keying it. And what you'll see here, if I run this, I would have to do much, much more to make it a little smoother. But it does two things, and it might not be super apparent for you, is it not only goes from frame to frame, but it interpolates. What that means is you'll notice that in between the frame I'm at, see these little slight variations? I didn't have to set those slight variations.
Oh, it fills it in for you.
It fills it in for me. Now again, I did this really quickly and very sloppily, but I would spend a little bit more time, and it even, see from here, it goes back to its beginning thing for me. So it's a really easy tool. Let me show you a different one. Let's start with goblins. The goblins is a good one. So save and continue, test, just in case we want to go back to it. And so here's a goblin. This is actually one of the samples. You can see, again, we're in setup mode, but everything's connected. So he has this whole arm area here. I can rotate it, move him around, and he's completely connected. And if I go to animation for him, there's a couple things I want to show you that are really awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and do run. And you can see, right out of the box, it's a much better animation. They actually spent
really
time.
smooth.
Yeah, they spent time doing it smooth. But here's the killer. So you'll notice that there's a skins folder. And what that means is I can have one animation that works for more than one person. So if I have a goblin girl, sorry, I gotta hit this. If I have a goblin girl, I can use the same animation for the goblin girl. So any similar figures, you can use them again and again and again. You'll also notice, very simply in this animation, I can swap out a piece. So if you want the eyes to blink, I can swap out the spear if I want them to carry a torch, or it makes changing the animation very, very simple. Also, if I go back to this and set up, say for whatever reason I wanted him, or her now actually, looking up, the setup will automatically change that, and I can save out this animation as well. So it makes building animations and building characters in your game super, super simple.
Yeah, that's cool that you can make little tweaks and it kind of accommodates for that.
I'll show you another one. I think it's Spinosaurus. Continue without saving.
Spinosaurus.
So it's not just for your characters, but if you're animating your screens, same way.
Oh, that's
so
great.
you can see I'm scaling it in and out, scaling it and moving it down, or they did, and then I'm moving stuff up from below the visual version of it. So you can animate everything. I think sometimes when you think about animation, you're thinking about just the character itself.
Yeah, definitely.
And then one more. We'll look at Spine Boy. Spine Boy is obviously their default and what they use to do all their demos and stuff. We'll look at him. Again, he has a very smooth, I'm going to collapse the dope sheet a bit so you can see him more. But he has more than one animation, so he doesn't just have a walk animation. He has a jump animation too. And you can tie them together. But here's the cool thing, especially if you're a developer. Actually, let me stop this. If I want to export it, actually, there's a couple ways to export it. So when I created mine, what I did is I exported it as a JPEG. And what that will do is it'll create, depending on how many frames you want, you can choose the number of frames you want. It'll actually create the individual frames, just like when we created the little cubby and pulled him in the GameMaker in a previous one. He had individual little frames that then you can pull in the GameMaker. But even more cool, you have a JSON export. So what this does is it exports the map, which is just those little character pieces that I had, and it exports the JSON that relates to the bones. It relates to the way the bones move, the way the bones are connected, and you can import that into GameMaker, you can import that into Unity, you can import it into Cocos, you can import it to a lot of different stuff. And what that allows you to do is, on the fly, in your game, change the way the bones work. So if you wanted him to look up at the sky only when a bird was up there, you can do that without having to create a separate animation. So it just saves you so much time when you're working on stuff.
Yeah, that's really cool, and that would be nice to be able to use your animations across different games or different game platforms that you're using.
Yeah, the fact that they do binary exports and they do base exports at like C# and C++ and JavaScript. It allows you to pull it in HTML5, whatever type of game you want to build. These images allow you to do that.
Yeah, that's very cool. I haven't used Spine, but after that I might.
Yeah. Actually, I hope everyone does. So hopefully in this section you enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun to work with Spine. It's really not that hard. Coming from a developer that's not a designer, that's not an artist, being able to pull and import images in and connecting the bones and animating the bones are really simple. Just a little few tweaks. So hopefully you enjoyed this today, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes or so. We're going to take a break and we'll be back with the next module.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Advanced Techniques for GameMaker. I'm Natalie.
I'm Daniel.
And this is Module 3, so we're going to be talking about advertising and analytics.
Making money.
Yes,
and seeing
that
where
always
you're
excites people.
where you're making money.
So we're going to start out with advertising today. So adding advertising to your game is actually really simple. There are many ad services out there, but we're going to be talking about Microsoft Ads today. So if I hop over to the website, so I'm over on this site, adsinaapps.microsoft.com/US. So like many services, the way it works is advertisers pay a cost per impression model, which is an ad displayed per customer, and then you as the developer or the publisher gets that revenue when the ad is displayed by your users. So the way the Microsoft Ads works is that you would get 70% of the revenue and then 30% to the service that you used. So one thing to note is that this actually only works for games that are targeting customers 12 plus. So make sure to account for that when you submit your game to the store if you're looking to make revenue off your game. So if we head over to Microsoft Pub Center, well, actually before that, I think we wanted to talk about the different displays of where you can put your ads in your game.
Yeah, and actually I'll show you. It's not going to show up on here because it's dynamic. Actually, let me bring this screen up. This is for Dave in the Cave. And so if you play Dave in the Cave, every time you clear a level, this screen is going to pop up. And this, what I want to talk about is people think they're going to have a windfall in advertising. And advertising works in very specific games. I do have ads in Dave in the Cave, and I will tell you right now that I have not gotten a windfall for a couple reasons. And I actually have a lot of users, 100,000 downloads total. But I have it in the screen in between the game for a couple reasons. One, I didn't want to create an ad inside the main rooms where it would annoy the player. But they go to this level screen in just an instant and they're out. So they barely ever see it. So placement of the ad is very important, and not every game can really do well on ads. But that being said, it's really, really easy to implement and put in your game. Just be aware of the placement and actually where you want to put it.
Yeah, so we'll actually be able to see picturing where to place those when we go into the Pub Center. But so over here, I'm still on the Ads and Apps website, and this is a great resource if you wanted to learn more tips and tricks about the ad service in general. They also have really great forums and blog posts about that on here. So if you want to really dig into that, I'd recommend looking at this. But the way we're going to do this is through Pub Center, and I went over to pubcenter.microsoft.com. And what you'll need to get signed up here is a Microsoft ID account. So I've already got mine set up here. That's your developer account. And then this is what the portal looks like.
And that's a Microsoft ID that they'll need to sign up?
Right, yeah. So I went over here to monetize new app. And then let's do a Windows app. So MVA test app. And so you'll want to put in your app name here, and then this is where we can see, let me zoom out maybe, so we can see this is the placement. This is showing us a preview of the placement of where you can place your apps. So first ad, and you can pick your size as well.
So that one is to actually integrate directly into the app instead of being something on the side. The last one you chose.
Yes,
yeah, cool.
Exactly.
Cool.
So the thing to make sure with whatever ads you choose is you want to get revenue. You're getting more revenue the longer that someone has your ads open, but you also don't want them to be disruptive to your game. So that might depend on the type of game you have. Maybe if you have a platformer and you don't have anything going on in the sky area of your game, maybe you'd want to place it up the top there or on the right somewhere. It really depends on what game you have, but you want to make sure that your ads aren't disrupting your experience. Otherwise, that might, just negatively impact your game as a whole. You can also pick the category for your ads. So I usually recommend picking something related to whatever your game is about. So if you're making a card game, you could pick one of the game's card ads. But you can use this for any app, not just for games. So if you were doing a social app or sports, you could pick something related to that. So I'm just going to go ahead and, since we're putting it on our game, it's kind of adventurous. I'll put it on there.
Is this for your mushroom adventure game?
I was going to try and place it on the platformer, but I guess I could look into putting it in my mushroom game in the future. I don't have ads on there right now, but I should get some. So here we can see the this is the app that I just made. This is one I was messing with before and didn't actually put it in there properly. But here you would be able to see a list of the apps you have monetized if you have more than one, and you can set up any sort of alerts that you want, payment details. So you would also want to put your payment details in here to get revenue as well.
And I can see that you're making just slightly less than what I'm making in Dave and Cave right now. So.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see your portal for Dave and Cave.
No, I'm not going to show that.
So I think it actually takes a couple of days for any sort of revenue to show up in here. I mean, we haven't put it in yet, but that's just something to keep in mind if you're wondering why things haven't showed up and you're getting a lot of hits on it. So now that we have all of this set up, let's just go and get the details for that because we want to put this into GameMaker in a second. So, okay, now that we have this, we'll hop back over to GameMaker. And this is the same platformer game we were working with earlier. And the way I would go set that up is I'd go into the Resources tab that's up here and go to the Change Global Game Settings. And we'd go over to Advertising. It's over here on the right. There it is. Wait, that one. I wasn't clicking on it. So we're going to go in and put in the info from the ad that we made in Pub Center.
You want to change the provider up there? Yeah.
Yeah. Which one do I want to change it to?
Are you on the Windows 8? Go to the Windows 8 tab on the left.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't forget to change to Windows 8 if that's what you're doing. So I'm using Pub Center, and this is where I would put in the app unit ID over from Pub Center. So I'm just going to copy that in. And we want to make sure that we pick the same size. So I guess I ended up going with the 300 by 251. So over here on the right, you can pick that. And you want to enable advertising and the test ads over here. So now that we have that, and you also want it to correspond to the ID that you made. So this is the first one that I have, so I've put it here in 0. And I'm going to press OK. So now that we have that in there, we actually have to put in like one line of code to actually be able to see our ads in the game. So we're going to go over to Room, and I'm going to put this up here just so that we see level 1 first when I press play. So now that I have level 1 open, I want to go into the code and add the ads into that there. So where do we have the code in here? Oops.
Looking for the...
I'm looking for the creation code. Can't remember where I put that or where that was.
Let's see.
Oh, here it is. It's in settings.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's actually, we're just going to be using the ads enable function. So here we can see it pops up. And the XY will refer to the position that we want to put it in. So we kind of talked about ad placement earlier. So in this game, since we have a platformer and he's just running, we don't have anything going on at the top of our game. So I'm going to try to position it somewhere over there. And then the number part is the number that it was in the ads list. And if you remember, I had it as in there as 0. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this function. And then I think I'm going to guesstimate this position to be something like this. And we'll see if that worked.
So if you're testing this too, you want to make sure you're doing it in Windows 8 native, because the Windows one will just be an exe and ads will not show up in that.
Oh, this is that other problem.
Yeah, so I'm actually glad that came up. So when you're doing testing in Windows 8, quite often you'll need to, every time you run it in Windows 8, you'll do most of your testing just in Windows, but when you're testing Windows 8 specific functions, you'll want to actually go and delete the installed version of the game so you can run it again, and that error will go away. It just has a hard time removing the old one before it installs the new one. But quite honestly, you'll be in the regular Windows one when you're testing your game most of the time.
So there we go. We have the ad up here on the top right. So if I just continued to play this game, it's not disruptive at all, and I'd probably get a decent amount of revenue because, you know, it's open there the whole time if they don't die in the first few seconds.
And obviously, you can tweak it to make it look a little better.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's hard to not finish the level,
right,
isn't
yeah.
it?
That's it. That's the ad. I don't have to keep playing.
Yeah. Cool, cool. So your ad revenue on that space game is going to start pouring in now.
Yeah, basically.
Okay. Awesome.
Where did you place your ads in Dave in the Cave?
So like I said, I placed them on the in-between screen.
Oh, okay.
Since he was climbing up and going around and all that other stuff, it was I didn't want it to be in a place where people could accidentally touch it, because you don't want to annoy your users.
Right, yeah. Another good place that I've heard to put it is in the splash screen. So when your game is loading up, there's a couple seconds there, and if your ad's there, it's gonna, you know, it's gonna be open every time they open the game, and it's not really disruptive because they're waiting anyway.
Yeah, it's all about perfect placement.
Yeah.
So you just got to test it.
Yeah. So
speaking of testing, were you ready to talk about analytics?
Yes,
okay.
That's exactly what I was about to do.
Yeah, this is a great way to figure out how people are actually playing your game. So one of the best ways to figure out how to make the most revenue out of your game is to see where are people quitting, where are they moving to, what options are they choosing, who's actually playing my game. And analytics is a great way to do that. There's a couple different analytics packages out there. Mm-hmm. I personally like Flurry. Flurry's a free one. And it's just so simple to put in your game. If you want to show them how to add that to your game, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm over here on dev.flurry.com, and I went and created an account with my email, and you have to verify it, you know, like you normally do. So once you get past that part, you're over here to create a new application, and we're going to look at the awesome Windows Phone, and then you can, you know, select the application for your name. I called this GameMaker. Test game, and then action and adventure. Oh, so one other thing that I should mention about the ads in your game is once you create the unit, you can go back and change the category if you want to change it to a different type of game or something, so that it shows different ads and it can, you know, add to that experience. So create app. So now we have this unique application key, so we can go over, I'm going to copy this and put this into GameMaker.
Notice on that last screen that it said download the SDK. The great thing about GameMaker is it's already built in. They've already built Flurry into it, so you don't have to mess with any of that stuff.
That's awesome, saves time. So we can go back into the change global game settings where we put in the advertising, and we'll go over to analytics on the right. It's right next to advertising if you got that part before. This time we're selecting Windows Phone, and we would do enable Flurry and paste in that Flurry ID that we have. And then there it is, it's in our game. So we'd be able to go back into our Flurry account later and see like the kind of traffic we're getting there.
So it takes about 3 days for the data to start coming. So you're always 3 days behind, but quite honestly, it's free. If we look at Dave in the Cave, since Dave's been out for a while, I want to show you what that simple thing she just did gives you. So right off the bat, when I open up my account, you can see Dave in the Cave. You can see a couple things that are really important for you. Unique users and active users. So how many different people have actually used your game at all, picked it up and started playing it, and how many are continuing to play it at any time? How many sessions do they have?
A lot of people.
Yeah. I was,
awesome.
like I said, it was fun to make the game. I was very happy that people enjoyed it. I get 4 stars on most
Wow.
platforms, 4.5 stars, I should say. And so if we start looking into here, you can see graphs on active users. You can see session frequencies. You can see number of sessions per user. You can see how many new users. And all this stuff I'm showing you right now. And let me actually go down here to show you even more stuff. Session length. I can see, and I'm not going to show you every little thing in here, but there's really some really cool stuff. User acquisition is actually a new thing they have here. The technical stuff, like, well, what kind of phones are people using? You can see the Nokia Lumia 520, which is very popular in Europe. It's one of our low-cost phones out there. Is mostly on that. As I said before, I have it on Android and iOS as well, so you can see that Android actually takes up the rest of the top 5s. You can dive in that to see how low it goes. You can see what carriers it's being used on. You can see what firmwares it's being used on. And so you can make decisions on changing the game, on adding to the game, doing updates. If there's bug fixes, which one am I going to do first? You know, where are people having its pain points? It has other stuff like, actually let me...
Did you make any changes to your game after seeing the analytics?
I have not. I have not yet. I know the things in my game that I'd like to change to make it better. You know, it's part of the learning process of doing it. But it just gives you just a wealth of information that you can dive into. And all of this all of that I'm showing you, there's a little bit more that I'm going to share with you, but all of the stuff that I'm showing you right now is all stuff that came from you just plugging in that ID. Mm-hmm. Flurry out of the box gives you all this stuff. I'm trying to find one.
Which one are you looking for?
I think it's audience. This one's really cool. Interests and categories. So Flurry is on a lot of different apps, not just games apps. I don't know why this isn't showing personas, maybe. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So you can see what types of people are using your games. And this might be a little bit more applicable to a non-game, because you can see casual and social gamers is off the chart for this one. And so Flurry's on a lot of different apps, so they're able to gather information on what types of apps people have on their phones in addition to mine that are also using Flurry. So we get all of this out of the box. You can see photo and video enthusiasts or social influencers. And so you can start targeting based on all this information. Again, all of this is out of the box. Another thing you can do is really get targeted on what you want to know. So if you want to know specific stuff, if we go back to Dave in the Cave, and I do scripts and search in scripts, I think I have something called Flurry in there. Let's see, this one maybe. So whatever you want to track. So I wanted to track a bunch of things. I wanted to track when someone went to another level, to see how far they got, to see who's getting to level 15. Are they quitting at level 14? Is 12 too hard? I have another one in here where I want to see, actually after level 11, I ask them to review it. And so I wanted to see whether they're saying yes to the review or no to the review and what frequency. So all through here, I'm setting things very specific to what I want to know. And all I do is do analytics event, and I say the type, and I give it a couple parameters. And then I'm able to, in Flurry, if we go back there, look at this technical stuff. I'm sorry, events. So events are mine. Game progress, showed ratings, so I wanted to know when they actually saw the ratings. That told me a bunch of stuff. It told me that they got to the level. And then whether when I showed them to rate it, whether they declined it, whether they declined it and said don't show me again, because I gave them that option. And I can dive into each one of these to see different levels. So the game progress tells me what level they went to, and we can actually look at that and dive through, and there's a bunch of charts to show me what levels they've gotten to and how far. So very simple to use, and it's something that you have to put in your game. You saw how simple it was. It's something that you don't want to miss in your game.
Yeah, there's so much information there. That's definitely helpful as a developer.
Absolutely.
So that was everything we had for that module. We talked about advertising and analytics. So we'll be back in a couple minutes to go on with the next module.
Okay, see it. Welcome back to Module 4 of Building a 2D Game with GameMaker Advanced Techniques. In this section, we're going to talk about touchscreen controls and saving your data. Now, I know in my game, to actually make it work the way I wanted to do, I needed touch controls. You had a artichoke and mushroom game? Or
Mysterious mushrooms.
Mysterious mushrooms game. And you implemented some touch controls in your game, right?
Yes, I did. I have you can touch to shoot.
Yeah, it's a very interesting part of game development is really deciding the touch controls you have. I've probably implemented 4 different types, testing them back and forth, and it's something you really have to think about depending on what your game is. You need to make it easy to use, because most of the time, like your game, like my game, it's on a mobile device. If you're doing it on a PC, that's easy. You can do mouse controls or maybe keyboard controls. But when you're on a mobile device, if you're on a phone or a pad, you really need them to just be able to use their fingers. So we're going to talk about doing touchscreen controls today. So we're going to start with control buttons and an easy way to do control buttons. We're going to also then talk about swipe. One of the easiest ways to control characters is by doing swipes, and I'll show you how to do that in a game. And then at the end, we're going to tack on, as you're going through your game, you want to be able to save some data locally that has to do with your game, what level they've gotten to, what things they've captured, what keys they have, how much gold they have, etc. And so you need to know how to do that. So we're gonna touch on that. So let's start by talking about adding touch controls to your game. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I want to share this with you again so you can follow along. We have a bunch of starter kits. You can find them at aka.ms GM starter kits. And if you download those, there's a wealth of information in those that allow you to get started. Some of the stuff we're going to be showing you in these last 2 modules come from those. And in those, you'll find 3 different starter kits: the platform, the maze, the endless runner, with some documentation as well. So if I look at and run the platform one, let me pop that open and run that. We'll let that come up here a second. You can see that I could, right now I'm using the keyboard to do stuff in this game, but I can also have these touch controls. Now, these aren't probably the best placement in the world for touch controls, but it is a good demo. It's a good way to show you what's going on. You can see I can do left, I can click on right, and I can do up, down, Z to jump, and X would be to shoot, although this guy doesn't shoot on this level. And so all of these work the same way as the keyboard input does. Now, these are big blocky buttons. Yours would probably look a little better, but you'll see the point. So let me go ahead and close this and then show you how you put that in. And where that's actually located in the starter kit is this Object Windows Features. We'll look at that more in the next module, but let's open this up. In here we have different pieces of code, and in here let's first look at, I think it's under Room Start, is what we call virtual keys. Now, virtual keys allow you to designate a section on the screen that when it is pressed, something happens. The important thing to note about virtual keys, and something that's very important, is that this is not going to show anything. This is just designating XY coordinates on the screen, so when a user presses there, something happens. Here I'm setting different keys to different places on the screen. You can see the coordinates I'm setting here, and then I'm assigning it a key. So I'm assigning this one left, I'm assigning this one up, I'm assigning this one down, and on down. I can set not just a key like VK right, but I can actually designate a specific key on the keyboard. And what that's going to do is it's going to map it. Since I already have in my program, I have the left, right, Z, X keys already mapped to do specific stuff. Move the player left, move the player right. It's going to piggyback on top of that. But if I just left my game like this and let people play the game, they would have no idea how to move. You actually have to show them something. So what you do then is you want to draw onto the screen. And that's pretty simple. If I just go in, this is on the object properties of the Object Windows Features object. You'll notice that right here, I'm drawing rectangles. So you can get a lot more creative with this. You can create a really cool gamepad, which is what I did at the beginning. But these are just very large rectangles that are the exact same coordinates as those virtual keys. So right here, I'm drawing the rectangles. And right here we're setting color, and then right here we're actually putting text on them so they know exactly what to do, the up, the down, the left, the right. And so if we run this one more time, you can see that it very simply gives them the ability to play this on a phone, to play on a tablet, wherever they want to do it. So easy to implement. Now, if we open up this other starter kit, and this is the Endless Runner. Again, we can use keyboard controls. And I can jump over the cactus, see if we made it in time. Up. Let me try it one more time. We can shoot, we can crouch, we can jump. And while I like this, it kind of lends itself to swiping. So there's a lot of different games that allow you to, and I'm trying to talk while I'm jumping, allow you to, let me get killed and I'll start over. A swipe is much easier. So if you imagine you're holding this in your hands on a phone or a tablet, being able to swipe was much easier. So I decided to modify the starter kit. So the base starter kit does not have what I'm going to show you. I've modified it to add these things. So I wanted to add swipes. So if you're not going to be able to see my finger, but if I swipe up, I jump. If I swipe down, I crouch. And then if I swipe to the right, I shoot. And it makes it super easy for anyone to play the game. The controls don't get in the way. And so let me show you how I implemented that. Let's go ahead and open up here. It's in the player object. In the crate, remember the crate code is when your object gets instantiated. And so we're going to set some different variables, either starting X and starting Y, or ending X or ending Y. And actually the swipe equals false I was using for testing, not necessarily needed, but this will give you the variables you need to track when you're working in your game. Then I added a couple events. Remember, adding an event, you can click on the Add Event. And what I did was I did a global left pressed. Remember, mouse events can work for touch events as well in GameMaker. So I did a global left pressed. And very simply, when someone pressed, I set the X and the Y from where they started. Again, swipe is set at no swipe because once I press, I haven't actually done anything yet. And then finally, there's another event called global left released. So I don't just want to know when I start. I also want to know when I end. So if we look at that code, it gets a little bit more complex. So you can see the variables that we created in the create event are now setting the X and the Y depending on where I took my finger off of it. I want to make sure it's a long swipe, so you can see I'm making sure it's 64 pixels at least. And then I want to determine, did we go right, did we go left, did we go up, and did we go down. And so if it actually is going right, I'm going to play an audio sound for the bullet. I'm basically doing the same thing that I did with the buttons. The bullet's going to create an instance of a bullet. It's going to start from the object player, right where he's at, and it's going to move over from there, starting at the X and the Y of the player. Now the bullet is a little more complex. If I want to have it actually come from his gun, I have to have different code, and we're not going to dive into this, different code of whether he's crouching, whether he's jumping, or whether he's running, because his pistol is going to be at different places. So that's what all this code is for. If I'm swiping left, it's doing nothing. I don't care about that code, so I just have something to kind of swallow that. Then down here, I just want to tell if it's either down, and if it's down, I'm going to change the sprite player index to the sliding guy, and I'm going to set an alarm. The alarm basically changes him back to standing after a certain amount of time, and I'm setting his speed. And then if I'm swiping up, I'm doing exactly the same thing. I'm playing a sound, his jumping sound, and I'm changing his sprite to sprite player jump, which is up in the air, and I'm making him jump up in the air just a bit by setting his V speed to negative. So very simple to do, very simple to add to your game. But what if you want something a little bit more complex? And we're not going to dive too deeply in this, but one of the things that I struggled with when making Dave in the Cave was having a controller on there that responded well to user input. And one of the things that I'll share with you, that the feedback I got from users, is when you have the buttons and you're not looking at the buttons, you sometimes couldn't hit the button exactly when you're transitioning from left to right, or even if you're sliding your finger back from left and right, they had trouble with that. So I'll show you what Dave in the Cave does. Let that pop up here in just a second. It's a little bit bigger game, so it takes a little bit longer to compile, especially the first time when I pop it up here. And so you can see that I'm actually even telling the user how to use it. Anywhere I touch on the screen, on the left-hand side, I set a joystick. And if I keep my thumb down, actually, let's see if I can do it with my finger. I can't, not on this touch screen. And then I split the screen in half. And on the right hand of the screen, if they click or touch anywhere on there, it makes them jump. So he slides over here and jumps on this side. And I found that they could never get lost because their thumb always hits somewhere over here. And they just drag it left and right, and if they leave go, he knows he stops. So this, for me, gave me the ability to have a very smooth experience for the user. But if we look at that code, objects.
That joystick would be fun on the phone.
Yeah, that's where it was designed for, is to make it, because the phones can be so small, although I had the nice 1520 and a ton of real estate. On the smaller phones, it was really hard with the joypads. So we're not going to dive into all of this code. But you can see what I had to do here is a little bit more complex. So just like a lot of stuff in GameMaker, it can start with simplistic stuff. You saw those push buttons were pretty simple. They were just saying, what region of the screen do I want to start with? And then draw an image on top of that, and he pushes that. It went to the swipe, which is a little bit more complex. It wanted to grab where on the screen and where he took off the screen and then add some code there. And then you go to a control like this where we're starting with collecting device IDs. We're checking to see what the sprite is. We have to if you can imagine, find out where I touched and then put the image actually right where my thumb's touching. Then you have to actually have the ball in the middle kind of stretch to it. So this is all the setting up the variables that I'm going to need in it, along with the direction, the distance, how far is the ball being stretched from it, because I'm actually taking his speed and changing his speed accordingly based on how far they're stretching it. So if they're barely moving the ball, he goes slower than if they take the ball and move it over a lot. And that's all in the step procedure here. You can see that I'm grabbing to see which way he's doing it, whether he's doing it right or left, and the distance based on the direction here. And then, of course, I have to do nothing in draw but draw GUI. All this code, what this does is find that place on the screen, and then it will draw the joystick on the screen right where I touch. So many different options when you're working with on-screen controls, and those are just a few of them for you to play with. So along with that is imagine playing a game, imagine playing like Dave in the Cave and getting through and getting 20 pieces of gold or 50 pieces of gold, and then you turn off the game and you don't have your gold anymore. Or you get past the first 5 levels and you turn off the game and you got to start over and start over from the beginning. It would be a very frustrating game. It would be Flappy Bird type frustrating of game, although that seemed to work for him. So you want to have a way to save data in your game, and so we're going to talk about that right now. Okay, so I'm going to bring up, actually, I'll just talk about it. So in GameMaker, there's a construct called DSMap. And DSMap is a very simple key-value pair. You set the key and the value you want associated with that. And all throughout GameMaker, you can use DSMap like an array to store your data. And so that's what we're going to use. Let's go ahead and look at DSMap script and look for in scripts. Actually, let me just open up an object. ds_map. And I want to find a very specific object. Object main UI. And you can see here that I'm first checking to see if the DSMap exists. And if it does, global save map, then I'm going to open it up. Now, the way you work with saving data in GameMaker is you save it to an ini file. And when you save it to an ini file, you can write strings out to it for the data you want to save. This one's grabbing everything I've saved. You can see that this one's grabbing the fact that someone's done the rating. So after level 11, I determine whether they've done the rating or not. And I want to save that because I don't want to show that screen again if they've already done it. So you can see that I'm saving that to it, and then I save it to an ini file. In addition, you can see we talked about Flurry last time. I'm also saving that to Flurry so that I can notate that for later as well. While I'm in here, I want to show you something. This is something that is very minimal in GameMaker, and one of the great things about GameMaker, and we've kind of briefly touched on this, is the fact that you can write a game once and have it on many different platforms. So I put it on Android, I put it on iOS, I put it on Windows Phone, I could have put it on a bunch of other devices as well. And GameMaker allows you to do that with just a slight bit of change to your code. Most things will translate to whatever one you're doing it for, but there's a few cases where you want to change different stuff. So if, for example, here's a good example, if I want them to review my app, I want to send them to the right place to review it. So when they click on a button, if they're on a Windows Phone, I want to send them to our marketplace. And you can see it still says Zune, by the way, is the URL to get to our marketplace. Review app, I pass it my app ID, etc. But obviously that's not going to work if I'm going to send it to iOS or Android. So this little case statement and the use of the keywords OS Android, OS iOS, or OS Windows Phone allow me to, with the same click of the button, send it to different places. And there's a few places like this where you'll have to have code separated depending on the platform, but they make it really, really easy to use. If you'll notice, one of the things that I always get asked when we talk about this is how do you encrypt the data? GameMaker makes it very easy. If you just use DSMap Secure Save, when you're saving the DSMap, it'll encrypt it for you, and there's an alternate one that sends it back for you to pull back up the data. So it makes it really, really easy. If you actually want to check out the data, I actually made it so it wasn't encrypted, so we can actually look at it. It's just going to be C users Daniel app data local Dave in the cave, and you can see the ini file here. This one actually has nothing saved. It was probably the other GameMaker right here. Nope. So I must not have run it on this PC. So it'll save it here. This one's not encrypted, but it'll save it this ini file different places depending on the platform. It's going to save it Windows Phone one place, Android one place, and iOS one place, depending on the platform. But again, it does that all for you. So in this module, we talked about adding controls to your game, controls that allow you to use swipe, controls that allow you to just do very simple press of the screen, and a little more complex joystick. I showed you a little bit around the type of code you need to use that, and then a very simple walkthrough of how you save data in GameMaker. Hope you enjoyed it. We're going to take a very quick break, and we'll see you back here for the next module. Welcome back to Creating 2D Games with GameMaker Advanced Techniques. I'm Daniel along with Natalie once again. And in this section we're going to be talking about, or this module, we're going to be talking about optimizing for Windows Store. And why is that important? So in some of the games that you'll play, you'll see on different phones, like Dave in the Cave is on Windows Phone, Windows, or iOS, and Android. And if you want to put it on a thing like Windows 8, you've got to be able to interact with and take advantage of the things that Windows 8 gives you, things like charms, things like the app bar, things that like search and etc. So you want to be able to easily incorporate that into your game. So we're going to kind of talk about that today. We're going to talk about pausing and adding snap to your game, which is a great feature of Windows 8. And then we're going to talk about working with charms, and Natalie's going to go ahead and walk us through this.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen all the cool features of Windows 8, or even if you are, we're just going to take another look at them over here on my screen so we know what we're working with. So here on my start screen, so first live tiles. You can see over here, if you wait a couple seconds, see we have the chicken soup updating with pictures and words. So automatically, when you look at the start screen, your eyes kind of flicker over to what's moving and what is flickering itself. So that's a really good way for you to add any updates that are happening in your game, whether it's like a high score or any news that you want to share on there, maybe someone that's at the top of the leaderboard or just beat today's high score. You could have that as a dynamic changing live tile so that when someone pins it to their start screen and they're scrolling through, then that's automatically what their eyes are going to. It's going to your game. It's getting more people wanting to play your game when they're walking around their tablet showing their friends.
Or like rewards they get in the game,
yes,
or tokens they've gotten, etc.
Yeah.
Cool.
The other thing that you can do is, so charms here, if you move your mouse over to the bottom right, or you can also, swipe right if you're using a touch screen like I am. And we have a bunch of the charms here. So search, we're all familiar with. Share is cool in your game because we can see this a bit later. You'll be able to see some options to share via social media or mails. We also have start devices and settings is another one that we will be using in the game later on too. One more thing that we want to make sure that we have in our game is the app bar. So you can either, let's see, swipe up from the bottom if you're in an actual app, which we can see with, I'll show it in the game now. This is that platform starter kit that we have too. So when we start the game and we right-click it, we can see here at the bottom that we have the options to do hello or chime sound. And once again, those were the charms here on the right that I was talking about. So you can share stuff about the game in the mail or the settings. And I'll just turn off the sound here. You saw me pop up the privacy policy, and that's something that you must have if you're connecting to the internet. So we talked about sharing the game via mail or any social media. That's when you would want to make sure that you have a privacy policy.
We saw your ad still there, so you're making money by showing that.
Yes.
Is that why you showed it to us again?
Yes, that's exactly why. So if I go back over to GameMaker, we're going to look at actually implementing some of this stuff. So if we go into our, let's first go look at the level 1 room. If we zoom out here, actually no, sorry, I wanted to look at the splash, I think. Yes, so if I zoom out here on the side, you can see that we have this Windows Features object, which you might have been wondering before what that was. So now that we know it's actually implemented here.
You know, before you close that, one of the
Yeah.
interesting things about what you're showing right now is the Windows feature actually doesn't have to have a GUI item to it. That's actually one of the things I really like to, for things that don't have a visual interface, like if you want to look at your screen again, the one on the right has a little question mark. And that's normally what you see, but in my games, when I build games, I actually like to put a visual representation of it on the screen so that I know that that level has that, so they can very easily see, like for that one, for example, has the Windows features on that screen. It makes it very clear to myself as a developer to know that I've included it. So.
Yeah. So I'm going to go over and actually look at the Windows feature object. So back over in the tree, here we have objects Windows feature, and if I go in here to the create code, firstly, you'll want to make sure that you have, let me zoom in, the visible and persistent check marked off. So we've made it persistent because we want this code to persist beyond this room. So in many other levels that you have in your game, we want it to be visible. And we did talk earlier about the 2 different ways to work with GameMaker, whether it was drag and drop or the GameMaker language. You'll be wanting to implement the Windows features with GameMaker language. So we're going to look at some of that code right now over here in the create execute piece of code.
That's actually a great point when you're going to show them this code, is that we talked about drag and drop in GameMaker language, and these features, there's no way to do them in drag and drop, so you have to use GML to do these features.
Yeah, so just going back to reiterating the fact that these starter kits are really great to work with. So if you're not familiar with how to implement these Windows 8 features, you can look at the code here, which I'm about to walk through, but a great way to start off with if you haven't done that before. So let's look, if we go down here, so we pointed out here in the comments that Windows 8 functions need to be written in GML, and we'll go down a little bit to look at, so here in line 2119, we're checking to see if we're actually using Windows 8 so that we can implement the features. And then if we go down to 25, that's where we start talking about the app bar. So we're turning this on to make sure, that we're actually putting the app bar in there. And then below this is where we have all the buttons that you can use. So this one is a hello message. Those are the chime ones. So before I showed you, I pulled that bar from the bottom and played that chime sound and that hello message. So that's where this comes in. So the first parameter is the button type, so button, and then the second one is whatever message you want to show there. Actually, sorry, that was the third one. The second one was the type, and the third one was what you want it to do.
So these are obviously Hello World samples, right? You would probably want to put maybe a pause in there, or maybe the store in your game in there, things that actually mean something to your game. So these are very easy, simple chime, simple hello world stuff, but it shows you how to implement it.
Right. And here you'll notice that this one says global. So you'll want to see, and also the restart one, whether it's global or not kind of depends on what you're doing with it. Something like restarting the level, you'll want to be global and be an option no matter what level of the game that you're in. Same with something like the pause option that Daniel was mentioning. So if we keep going down, we can see here over on line 41 and 42 that we have the option to put in the share charm. So it's Windows 8 share text, and it's saying, I'm playing a game on Windows 8, won't you join me? So here you could have whatever fun share message you want to do. That showed up before when I was, when I put my cursor down to the bottom right, and it came up here in the share charm for our game. So it could be fun to put in Facebook or Twitter if you like to use those things, if maybe you defeat like a big boss in your game, or a really high level, you'll want to share that and do some bragging to your friends on Facebook. Or if you just want to share the link, the mail option is good for that too, or Twitter.
And actually the great part about that is with the share charm, you don't really have to do anything. So on the right, depending on what you have installed, if you have Facebook, if you have Twitter, if you have other social medias, I think it showed mail on this machine as a default, but you don't have to build in the Facebook stuff, you don't have to build in the Twitter stuff. Those apps implement the share charm, so you just pass it to that, and it makes it easy for you as a developer of your game.
Yeah, very true. So over here on line 45, we are looking at the settings charms. So that's before we're also still on the right, you know, down here in the settings. That's where you would want to put in the privacy policy option. So like we said, if you're using Facebook, Twitter, any sort of social media or mail, accessing the internet with your ads, you definitely need to have a privacy policy to pass certification. So you can go and set that up yourself and then put that into your settings the same way we have the code in here.
And that's actually worth repeating. So we've seen a lot of apps get refused in the store because of that. If you're accessing the internet at all, you need a privacy policy. It's very simple to do. You can see on there it was just a URL to freeprivacypolicy.org. You'd probably want one on your website, and you can just put the simple privacy policy on there, and that will be one way that you're not going to get rejected from the store, because it's a very easy one to miss and forget in your game.
So how did you put the privacy policy in your game?
I just have a simple link from my game to my website, and I have a page that it directs to that says the privacy policy for it.
So they could put it on their own website or
and I grabbed
anywhere.
I grabbed a generic one. I'm not doing anything at all with their data. The only reason I have internet is for Flurry, for analytics, and for the ads. I need it. I'm not using it for anything else. So.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So then if we keep looking through the code here, we can see that we are, where was it? Oh, here, snap mode is very important. Snap mode is a really cool feature that comes with Windows 8. So if you want to minimize something and snap to the left or right while you're working on something else, we want to be able to pause the game, because you don't want, for example, if you have a game that's on a timer, you don't want it to keep running and you get killed by the enemy or something like that while it's snapped to the left or right. So what we want to do is we want the screen to check for this. We want to check for the screen size, and then if it is a certain less than max size or less than a certain size of the screen, we want it to pause. So
when you snap it, the screen for the game gets smaller, and so we're just measuring that size and figuring out, okay, well, if it's this size, we're in snap mode, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so we have that also over in the resize code here, does it more clearly. So here you can see it's looking for the size of the window here, and it says stop all objects other than this one performing their code. Snap mode is on, so snap mode equals 1. Otherwise, you want all objects to continue playing the game. And then snap mode is off, so snap mode equal to 0. So it's really easy to implement that in with a couple lines of code. And we can actually go back and take a look at that, all all of this stuff running one more time in our game just to give kind of a refresher of all the cool features. So I'm just going to make sure that I don't have double of our game installed here. And go over and run this again.
Slowly.
Yes, so just a little refresher of all the features. We have at the bottom the app bar, that hello message, the chime. Here's the hello message up there. Over on the right, we have the charms, not the chime. The charms, we have the share option to send a mail. We have our privacy policy over in settings. And let's look at the snap mode. I might need to window this. And that's not.
One more try.
I'm trying to do it with touchscreen. Okay. There.
There you go.
There. And it has a little error message, so you could do something like this, leave snap mode to continue, or you could do one of those big pause icons, just another chance to get creative with your game. And
so it's really up to you to decide what you put there.
Yeah.
But the key feature is you want to pause whatever action's going on in your game.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so in my Mysterious Mushrooms game, what that is counting down on a timer. So you're trying to shoot the mushrooms before dark falls. So
what about the artichokes? Are they there too?
That's not part of it. That'll be my next game. So for this one, in my game, if you pulled it to the right or the left and you snapped it, you don't want it to continue because otherwise you're going to get a really low score and it'll hit nightfall and you'll be terrible at the game. So for my game, I have it to pause on snap, just like we showed here, but that's just an example of, how having the pause and the snap helps your game not.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that was everything I actually wanted to show for the awesome Windows 8 features. Those really enhance your game experience on the platform. But other than that, I hope that you've learned a lot with our advanced techniques for GameMaker.
Yeah, we want to absolutely thank you guys for coming. We enjoyed presenting this today. There's some really cool stuff, the skeleton stuff, the Windows 8 features, kind of a short deep dive into GML. And if we haven't answered your questions so far, we will be sticking around to answer your questions, so keep asking them. We're here to help you guys make cool games, and we'd love to actually see the games you made if you start to.
Yeah, you have our Twitters, our blogs, so please share with us whatever you create, or if you have any more questions after today, you know how to reach us.
Great. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
Bye.